So, welcome,
Well,
ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Radio Retrofuture. I'm Bonsert, and today I have with me Wayne Johnson, one of the people behind the movie project Romeo 3000. How are you doing?
pretty good, pretty good. A little warm. It's pretty humid right now in upstate New York, so just
Okay.
making bear. Hopefully, I had to turn off my main fan, which is over here, but I got one behind me. Hopefully, that's not interfering with sound or anything like that. Otherwise, you're just gonna see me melt. So, which I think would be kind of cool.
Before we go into your Romeo 3000 project, just, who is Wayne and what does he do?
Well, Wayne W. Johnson is just a normal dude. I'm an actor, musician, and hopefully at some point I'll be able to put writer into that. We'll see what happens with that, but I'm already juggling enough as is, so we'll see. Acting-wise, I do a lot of indie films. I have branched out a little bit. A lot of the stuff is centered in central New York or throughout New York State, but I have done stuff out of state. There was a time when I was actually doing this full time for like about 2 or 3 years, and so I made a lot of inroads that way. And really, that's the way to go. It's pretty hard to do it part time. Currently, the movie that I'm most known for is a movie called Night of Something Strange, which is the zombie virus spread through STDs, and just basically saying it's very over the top. Basically, it's there to offend as much as possible, I guess. Actually, I forgot to ask, what's the rating here? Like, in terms of swearing.
Well,
all
let's
that
keep
stuff.
it family friendly.
Okay, well, I just threw that right out the window with all that right there. So I won't say any more with that. Most is the role of Dracula in a movie called Tales of Dracula, which is a throwback to 1940s Universal horror, which is like the total opposite of Night of Something Strange. And it's also in black and white. Both movies are out right now. I'm also a musician. I'm in a band called Caroline Blue. I haven't been doing too much with that band at the moment because it's kind of hard to when I've got so many acting gigs going on. On top of that, because it's kind of hard to tell guys, hey, just kind of sit back. I got a shoot to do, so you guys just chill out for like a couple of weeks or a couple of months or something like that. But hopefully before the end of the year, I'll have some music videos and some new songs. There's actually supposed to be a new song from Caroline Blue on the Romeo 3000 movie. So hopefully everything aligns up, but we'll see with that.
So, your whole horror career, so to speak, was that a conscious choice, or did that just happen?
Well, when I started, it's interesting. When I was in high school, I actually had a choice between music and acting. Most of my friends at the time were musicians. And so I hung around that crowd, and of course I got influenced by that, and I really wanted to do that. And the reason I chose music isn't exactly the most glamorous, but it's the truth, where basically I couldn't hook up with a woman to save my life back then, okay? And some would say you can't do it now. But it's, and I thought music would be an easy way to do that. I know that's a pretty shallow reason. And later on, I went to college, and I actually have a bachelor's degree in music. And I learned to appreciate music for what it is. But in the beginning, it was just mainly to, with peer pressure with friends and women. However, at that time, I was in a class in Spanish of all. We had to do these commercials just in Spanish and stuff. And I tend to have an active imagination. And so I made this commercial where I'm wearing like this ski mask, and at the time I was doing martial arts, and so I had a face mask on top of that, and it was a cereal commercial. And I'm pitching cereal with this thing, and I end up kicking the box off the table and all this stuff. And the reaction I got from that was, people were like, that's Wayne? He's that quiet dude over there that nobody talks to, with a bowl haircut. It's like, wow, we didn't know we could do that. So I got a lot of positive feedback from that. And shortly after that, and also, believe it or not, I actually did a music video in that same class too, where I'm wearing like a bad makeup, like kind of like a cross between Paul Stanley and the Ultimate Warrior. And I'm sitting there gyrating around and doing all this stuff with a saxophone, and we're doing like a lip syncing of Tequila, which there's nothing to lip sync to. So it's like so, and that got a great reaction too. So, and the next year, there was a theater class. So I took that, and again, I did very well. So at that point, I was just about to leave high school. So it's like either or, and it's kind of ironic that I chose music as my main focus, because now it's the other way around. It's where acting is more of my main focus. Because what happened was, I went through all the typical band stuff that everyone goes through, and with multiple different bands, and then I formed my own band, which was Caroline Blue, and started making some headway. We started playing out of state.
What kind of music is it, by the way?
What I would call classic hard rock or melodic hard rock. We've been compared to Kiss for that in terms of some of the singing. Although usually the way I describe it, Caroline Blue music sounds like Kiss with touches of bands like Typo Negative, LA Guns, Megadeth, Dokken. Usually it's just what people have said we've sounded like. So it's I kind of go from there. The latest stuff that I've been putting out, I've been using 7-string guitars and 5-string basses and stuff. So it's definitely it's more of a modern type of sound to it. And I'm hoping to kickstart that either this year or next year. But going back to the other story there, it's ironic because around 2010, we were doing a music video. For whatever reason, almost everybody that was there was having a horrible time. Things were going wrong. People were getting hurt. I mean, it was just, but I was having a ball. You put me in front of a camera and I'm a happy lad. Okay. So I was having a great time, and it's kind of like I kind of reconnected with that, because I'm kind of like, being in front of how else can I do that? And it so happens that the producer for the video, his name is Ron Bonk from New York, with SRS Cinema LLC. And I've actually, through him, I actually got started initially in my first movie that I was in, which I was an extra in, as a gang member of all things, in a movie called Miss Cannibal Holocaust. And from there I got to another movie called Rise Up and Fall with Brian Hewitt from Hewitt Films. And then shortly after that, I hooked up with Matt Peters from Mad Angel Films. So those three guys really took a chance on me initially. I mean, there was a couple of little other projects that I got on board with. I was on a documentary called Smeed the Movie by Courtney Angel, which was about a local musician here, Alan Smeed, who he's in a band called Undergang. It's very entertaining. I've never seen a frontman like him. He's singing, but he kind of does his own thing. I mean, when you got a guy who's sitting there and he starts doing push-ups on stage, and he's he's kind of to say, go watch a video or go to a show. So I did that as a little touch of acting and stuff, but I didn't. And there was some other projects like we had talked about before we got on here that, you started filming and then they kind of, it's like, what happened to them? I'm still waiting. I'm still holding on to pictures and other things from 2011. I mean, so and on. But basically from there, and then I lost my job at the time. But I had some money behind me. So I said, I made the conscious decision to see what I can do with acting. Music at the time, I was getting kind of burnt. That lineup had kind of broken up just for all sorts of bad reasons and stuff, unfortunately. Good people, but sometimes things just don't work out. And so I wanted to take a break from that. And so I just went full on into acting and threw myself into anything that I could. But on the other hand, see, I only had that one theater course, so I didn't really have a lot of training. Definitely, if you're somebody who's a student, if you have access to training, definitely go for it. Having said that, especially with indie movies, I think a person will find out real quick there's a big difference between school training and being actually on the field, especially if it's guerrilla filming. It's like it's a total 180. All of a sudden, it's like, what's this? You're asking me to do this? I'm gonna fall on this with no padding. What? Kind of stuff like that. And and that was part of it too. I mean, I knew, because I'm like 6'3" and I have long hair, and I kind of have what I've been told is kind of a unique look in a way. I could go on that, but only for so long, unless I just wanted to stay at a certain level. So I needed the training, but even though I had some money behind me, I didn't really know where to go. So for me, the easiest way to get that was experience. So I just put myself for anything at the time. I mean, if there was a call for a corpse, I would play it, because from my music background, I know how important networking is. And if you do a good job, if you are reliable, if you're somebody who's not a problem, you're not sitting there complaining and bitching and moaning, and you're not one of these people that you're constantly. I mean, I understand the artist side of things. You just get it done and you get the experience and you move forward. And hopefully, as you get better and as you network more, you start to open up more choices. 2012, that was my extra phase. I was just kind of hitting anything, just trying to reach out. And
What is Romeo 3000 and how did that get started?
Romeo 3000 is basically our own take on the classic Romeo and Juliet story. My little tagline for that is basically it's us butchering Shakespeare, you know. But no, it's not. We do take some liberties with it, though. Basically, the way it started was back in 2012. Matt Peters, he sent me a couple of scripts and to check out, and they were scripts where I was the title character. There's one that's actually still being cooked, so to speak, right now, and maybe that'll come out, maybe, or at least start to be worked on in a couple of years. But this one was Romeo 3000, and it's funny because I didn't find out until we were filming and we did an interview for a newspaper out this way, where Matt was saying it was kind of a joke film, and I didn't know that, you know. But I was originally slated as Romeo, and it was a 17-page script. It was supposed to be just a short film. So I looked at it and I said, well, do you mind if I tinker with this a little bit? And he goes, no, go right ahead. So I brought back, I got it up to 40 pages, still like a short film thing. And he, by that time, he got into the idea of saying that he wanted to do a full-length feature, which obviously it's more pages. So I started adding a lot more to it. I started bringing in a lot of people, because the original concept of Romeo 3000 didn't even have half the cast that it does now. Like, for example, there was no Lord Paris, there was no Lady Capulet, there was a ton of roles that were just missing. Okay, that at the time we didn't really need for the short film version. So I brought that up to about 90 pages and sent that back to Matt. And then he had some more suggestions and stuff. And then after we argued for a while, or wrestled, I eventually got that up to 123 pages. So it's quite a big script. There's a lot going on. So I wanted to make sure that it was very, that it wasn't that typical, oh, well, what happened here? What happened here? What happened here? Plus, I also wanted to do it where it was more of a drama. You know, a lot of films with Mad Angel Films, and there's nothing wrong with this, they started out in horror, and then they're currently doing a lot of action adventure with stuff like Slade Collins and the Tree of Life, Brackish, and many more. They've got like about 14, 15 films in their stable. So they've been quite prolific and doing a lot of,
How long have they been around?
I believe since 2007 is when they started. It's funny because in 2007 their first film was called Brackish, and then a couple of years ago they actually remade it. So it's like Neo Brackish, I guess, or something like that. And I wasn't around for acting for 2007. I didn't show up until a movie called Night Run, and at the same time also a movie called Stone, both by Mad Angel Films. And eventually it led up to this point here with Romeo. So we started like around 2012 with this. And then a couple years later, he wanted to put this into production. So we had to make sure that everything was done and ready to go. So in 2015, we did that. Got pretty much everything filmed. And things have been it's very slow, but kind of progressing, because we did a Kickstarter. It was a successful Kickstarter, but we ran out of money pretty quick. And the way I usually describe Romeo 3000, it's I don't want to say it's a like straight out steampunk, because there's going to be purists out there going to be like, oh yeah, yeah, okay. So I always say, just to be safe, I say a touch of steampunk, because it's definitely by the outfits you can tell. And there's even a very slight touch of cyberpunk in there too, because at least when I bought the eyepiece, it said cyberpunk. So, it's not the one that's on the poster, which you see right there. I actually wore three of them, three different eyepieces. The first one is more of the typical steampunk one, like the aviator or the navigator with the two lenses,
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah,
I've
I know
seen
what
you
you mean.
wear
Yeah.
something similar, like something like that. And if we had the funds, we would definitely have. It would be great to have the airships and all that stuff involved. I would love to have that. I would love to go into the full experience. But with Mad Angel Films, it's basically like low budget, or you can even say micro budget filming, I guess, if you want to call it that. So it's limited. So right now, we just had an editing session with me, Matt Peters, and another producer, Jason Covey. And because right now, when we got done, we basically had like 3 hours, a 3 hour movie, and it was a little long. Okay, especially since this is a drama. This alludes to what I was saying before. It actually does follow the guidelines of the original Romeo and Juliet, so it doesn't stray off too much. But there's little things that happen in there. Having said that, because we have to cut it down to a certain length for DVD,
Hmm.
some of those might be cut out. Whether there's going to be like a director's cut version or something, we hope there will be at some point where everything gets put in there. Because when we get to this stage, me as being one of the writers, this is the part where you hate, because you're seeing stuff. It's like, you can't cut that out. You can't cut this out. Meanwhile, you
Kill
got a
your
person who's
darlings.
not a yeah, yeah. Meanwhile, you got a person who's not the writer going, cut this, cut that, cut that, cut here, cut everything, and it's like, oh,
It's the
okay, so
cutting
there's
table for a reason, you know.
we're down to 10 minutes, so we're back to a short film. I never really understood that before with writers and everything, but I definitely understand it now. you know.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully at some point down the road there's going to be a director's cut, and it'll obviously be on Blu-ray. There's going to be a Blu-ray version of Romeo 3000 too, but it's going to be more like the DVD. It's just going to probably have some extra stuff like behind the scenes stuff, audio commentary, that kind of stuff happening, hopefully. By the way, I tend to ramble, and I also tend to go off on different topics. So anytime, just tell me to shut up.
Oh no, you know, I've got editing software. Don't worry. Uh,
Okay.
no,
Just me answering yes, no.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. No, it won't be that bad. But so how long do you how do you call it, the cinematic version? How long will that be?
Well, let's put it this way: when we watched the edited version, what we just saw last week, it clocked in about 2 hours. Now, so anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm thinking it's going to be closer to the 2 hour mark. I'm not there when the actual editing is taking place. Unfortunately, at the moment too, we don't have the effects in yet or the music, and of course, those two are very important. So, once those are added in, that's going to change a lot of things. So we'll see what happens. Matt's usually it's kind of on my shoulders in a way, because Matt's usually pretty busy. He's always got multiple projects going on. I mean, right now his main film that he's filming right now is called Radiant Dark. It's kind of like he hates me when I say this, but it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings kind of movie, I guess. But it's the easiest way for me to say that, and people just kind of connect right away, and they go, oh, it's fantasy, like the elves, all that kind of stuff. Okay, they understand it. That's like, Romeo 3000. It's very easy to say, Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, but let's talk a little bit about the aesthetic. How did you come up with the cyberpunk and steampunk elements? Was that by kind of coincidence, or is there for you a real storytelling element in there?
That was really Matt. Matt had that from the get-go. He basically had and I can say this because it's actually, we've used it in promos and stuff like that. He's the last of the Montague. Now, right there, we're variating from the story, because the original story, you had the Montagues and the Capulets, and they have the opening scene with the, do you bite your thumb at me, sir? That whole thing, and where it escalates into a battle, right there, and then it gets broken up. So you have both families right there. Right at the beginning of Romeo 3000, it's established that Romeo is the last of the Montague. The Capulets have actually won.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And one thing that I think is going to be, unfortunately, edited out is it goes more into the backstory of how he became a cyborg. Having said that, I watched the last edit, and it tells the story well. It's just some of the subplots on there, I guess it's more meat on the body. Sometimes you can be trimmed down to fighting shape, but I guess not to say that the extra stuff is fat or anything like that, but it worked as is. But when you put the extra stuff on top of it, it'll work even better.
Right.
But again, we don't even know for sure if there's going to be that director's cut because it's going to depend on a lot of different factors, with all that stuff. But there is a lot of extra footage that's going to be involved. So the cybernetic part was right there from the start. The steampunk elements and everything was that was again another Matt decision. I mean, he came up with the basic story of how everything was and the basic look, how he wanted everything to be and stuff like that. And basically what I did was I just took that and I ran with it and expounded upon it.
So what is the world? What is the world itself like?
Well, it's post-apocalyptic. There's been it doesn't really say, and I'm not sure. And again, this part of this depends on the effects, because if we can have it really show that this is the aftermath of a nuclear war. Now, it doesn't really say how far after that. There's obviously, we did shoot in ruin locations and stuff, so there is that. Although the house that we shot in for House Capulet, it's a very beautiful house. The Capulets are definitely very well. They definitely have a lot of money behind them and stuff like that, and did that. And we actually filmed that at a location called Hillcrest Jepson Estate in Casanova, New York. Linda and Brian Osborne are the people who run that. If you go to our Facebook page, Romeo 3000 movie, there is somebody who already snagged up Romeo 3000 on a couple different social media things, and it's just some guy who's just kind of like doing nothing, for the most part. But for the most part, it's kind of post-apocalyptic. A lot of ruins, and it would have been perfect. And even within the story itself, it's like, you don't really see a lot of guns. There might be one or two that pop up, but it's because, and there's reasons why, maybe even an advanced gun, perhaps, but there are specific reasons why. And although, again, depending on which subplot got cut, it'll explain that, but for the most part, there's a reason why people have swords, or not even at all. I mean, for the most part, there is an explanation within the script why only the higher upper Capulets have swords. Nobody else has swords.
Wow.
There's a reason for that. There's a kind of and it kind of makes sense. The ruling house of that city-state is going to make sure that there's no, not everyone's having a weapon, and it's not like the Wild West and everything where people can just do all that stuff. They've pretty much taken over that the city-state of Verona.
Yeah.
So.
And how did you get the props? Did you make them themselves, or did you buy them on the internet, so to speak?
For the most part, a little bit of both. The cyborg arm for Romeo, that was made. I'm not sure who made that. That's Matt went through that, and also the eyepiece that he has. And you can see it's weird when you look at pictures. It looks like something just got attached to him, and it looks almost like, well, and even when I first saw it, I'm like, well, it's not blending into his skin. It should be. But, actually that was part of Matt's madness, so to speak, but it actually worked really well. And this is probably what he had in mind right from the get-go, is because by the time, in this time period after the nuclear war and stuff, and a lot of knowledge has been lost, they had the technology to do the cybernetics, but not the finesse. They didn't have it, so it was kind of like, yeah, we can do this, but it's going to look pretty archaic. It's not going to look like modern stuff. It's not going to look like the Terminator, okay? Mm-hmm. Because they don't have that finesse and the skills and stuff like that. We're still in that whole post-apocalyptic phase where people are just, they find the technology and they go to put it on, but there's like nothing. It's not like somebody is a skilled surgeon who specializes in cybernetic surgery or anything like that. So that actually made sense where it looked like part of it was on there. Some of the costuming Matt went through for himself as well, and through other sources. I can say from my own costuming for Tybalt, I actually went through Historic Emporium, Gentleman's Emporium, and got a lot of stuff off of there. They have a lot of great steampunk Victorian costumes through there.
I know that website, yeah.
little pricey, but that's fine. I actually spent quite a lot on my outfits. I wear like 3 different outfits, and they look great though, and they have that feel and authenticity to them. I just went through the web and like on Amazon and other places and anything I could find. The sword I got from True Swords, the rapier. Even in the clip that I sent you, I have these like forearm guards. Well, at one point, I'm going through a fight scene with the swords and stuff, and hear a twack, and it actually hit the guard, and I'm like, oh yeah, that would have been great if I wasn't wearing that. I'd be cut open right now, So.
And how about, because it's an indie film, do you get community support besides Kickstarter?
To a degree. I mean, we use different locations throughout Utica, Casanova, as we were talking about earlier. We actually filmed also at a place called the Landmark Theater, Syracuse, New York, which when you see the ballroom scenes, I mean, you're going to look at that and it's like, wow. I mean, for an indie film, especially at this level, I mean, the budget really for this movie, I would have to say is maybe around 10 grand. And I know that's really low, but when you see like a location like this and you see some of the imagery, because the cameras were rented and everything, I mean, it's a beautiful location in the Landmark Theater. The lighting, everything, it has that whole steampunkish kind of ballroom setting. So and we actually made a call at that point, because that was where Lord Capulet was going to address the citizens of Verona. So we actually made a call for extras, anybody who was into steampunk or just basically anything that was even related to that. So a lot of people showed up, and a lot of people had the eyepieces and the whole 9 yards. They're all dressed up and stuff. So we got a lot of support that way. We also filmed out in Utica and Little Falls, sometimes out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just, it's like, why are we out here? Something could happen and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're stuck here. Kind of a location, but that's nothing new with Mad Angel Films, and they tend to find some really remote locations to film, and it's good stuff though. It comes out really nice on film.
Okay, so when do you expect the movie to be released?
I have been saying for a while throughout the year. I've been saying it'll hopefully be out before year's end. What'll happen is, I believe it's starting to narrow down now from that. I think it's gonna be sometime in November. What's going to happen is there's going to be a premiere in Central New York. It's either going to be in the Utica area and or maybe in Syracuse, at the Landmark. Possibly, I'm not sure. There was talk about that. I don't know for sure about that. And roughly either at the same time or shortly afterwards, the DVDs will be available. Whether the Blu-ray will be available after that, I'm not sure. That's more of a Matt question. I know that they want to have everything out ready, on VOD and all that happy stuff. But you got to take it one step at a time. And right now it'll be the premiere, and then hopefully the DVDs, and then we'll have them available on sale. And if you keep checking on either the Mad Angel Film site at madangelfilms.com.
Is there something you want to add, a personal message or some words of inspiration for the viewers?
Inspiration. I'm gonna stop talking. That'd be my inspiration. No, I mean, basically, the approach that I did. On the one hand, I would recommend that to everybody, which is basically jumping into the deep end of the pool and just starting to swim. On top of that, something I didn't mention before, there was that the Romeo and Juliet movie which had Leo DiCaprio. They basically used the exact text from Shakespeare. We wanted the flavor of it, but we didn't want to go that route because it had already been done before. So some of the talking, as you can see, if the clip is going to be with this, you'll see some of that flavor intact throughout the movie. So we have that, and it's not so much of a butchering, even though I joked about that in the beginning. We hope that you give it a chance and enjoy it. And again, for the people who are Mad Angel Films regulars or people who follow Mad Angel Films a lot, this might be a little different than the norm, because again, they're normally action adventure. This is more of a drama. It's more of a chance for people to kind of showcase, the acting ability in a sense. But it's not. Its story is always the first and paramount. Okay, this wasn't done for an acting exercise or anything like that. I hope everyone enjoys it. So
Okay, well, the links will all be down in the description for the people who want to see more about Wayne's work and Mad Angel Productions. Yes, so we're gonna leave it at this for today. So people, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Wayne. Wayne, thank you for being here, and for the people that are watching, if you have not yet subscribed to Radio Retrofuture and you want to see more of interviews like these, we have more coming up. So yeah, expect, if you want to know what guests we'll have very soon, follow us on Facebook. There I'll post all the events. So yeah, I already asked you to subscribe. If you really like what I do, please consider donating to my Patreon. Links, of course, also down in the description. And of course, if you like this material, like it, share it, and promote the artists that come on the show. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, just keep making things your way. And good night.
7, 8, hit it!
leaving so soon.